Hey everyone, welcome back to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast with Allison and Mandy from Soulstar Energy Collective. We are intuitives and teachers and healers, and we just love to chat all things spiritual, make it relatable, make it fun. And today we have a special guest with us. We're very excited to introduce Brett Llyod. He is a 63-year-old, happily married, guitar playing, medium, and channeler. Welcome so much. Thank you for being here, Brett.
Oh, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you and Allison. I'm going to get your names mixed up from time to time.
That's okay.
Just expect that right from the start. I even sat with a still image of you all doing an episode, and I'm like, remember. Allison, dark hair.
Yeah. At least we have like
lighter hair.
The polarity there, right?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lived an incredible life that the middle part wasn't worth a damn, but the beginning and especially the end has just been such a joyful thing. And I'm so fortunate to be able to share my experiences with you all tonight. And I appreciate this wonderful opportunity.
Yay. Thank you. We love it. We love that, we've gotten connected. We love that, Brett, you've comment, like you've kind of like listened to the podcast and you just kind of like came into our lives, and it's just like this beautiful light.
Yes.
Like we feel your energy. And it's just like, we feel that warmth and that light. And it's so wonderful that you can exude that, through technology, right? Because you're back east. Where do you live?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah. Like, oh, I love that. So I'm like, but you just like radiate that energy. And so it's, we're so excited to have you on to share your journey. And then, yeah, tell us kind of like, more about what you do. But I guess let's start with, how did you get to where you are right now? Being able to channel, being a medium, like what was your journey to get here?
Okay, I have to start with the health part of things first.
Yeah.
And I'll try to mix in some of the related spiritualism. I was born in Huntington, West Virginia. My parents were lower middle class. We had an enormous vegetable garden. My parents thought that we were living the food pyramid. There was plenty of vegetables. It was all fresh. We had fresh vegetables year round. If it wasn't picked that day, mom and dad had canned it. Had plenty of meat. There was always, we had the rainbow on the plate, and we had the starch and everything. And out of the four of us, my dad passed away in 2020 from type 2 after 20 plus years of type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
I got to help him transition as a ignorant carnivore. I wasn't aware of spiritualism at the time, but I got to be there when he transitioned and assist him in a 3-week process and help my mom out at the same time. Basically, long story short, my sister almost died from ulcerative colitis. My mom had a series of autoimmune issues most of her life, multiple surgeries. I suffered from chronic mental illness, major depression with psychotic features, chronic anxiety, and chronic insomnia for 43 flipping years.
Wow.
For 23 of those years, I took psych meds as prescribed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And thank God for Orna, which I'll get into a greater detail about why that's her being here is so important. But I discovered the carnivore lifestyle by the most wonderful accident possible. In January of 2015, I weighed almost 300 pounds. I was on 7 different psych meds.
Wow.
And I honestly didn't think at 57 I would live out the year.
Wow.
And then I had a friend of mine that I was doing some studio music work with. who was watching me just literally disintegrate in front of her. And she said, have you ever thought about medical marijuana? Now, as a musician, it had always been around.
Yeah.
But I had a bad experience with it when I was really young.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that 1 or 2 tokes was all I would need for the day. Then.
Oh, no.
And so I had a bad experience, got lightheaded, got sick, got passed out. And I'm like, well, you can do that with beer a whole lot cheaper and it's legal. Cannabis was just not my thing. I'd be out playing with a band, and during breaks and stuff, they'd be passing a number around, and it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I found out in February of 2015 that medical marijuana not only was a good thing, it successfully treated all my symptoms, many orders of magnitude better than all those psych meds I paid a fortune for.
Wow.
And I've come to later learn that all they did was make me more obese and crazier.
Wow.
That's so disappointing, hey?
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Just a wee bit.
Yeah.
Took a while to get rid of that resentment, let me tell you what. And then a Canadian accidentally came to my rescue for real. I part of my 420 thing, I learned about Jordan Peterson from the same lady who asked me about medical marijuana. She messages me one day and says, you got to go watch every video by this guy named Jordan Peterson. You're going to love it. And of course, back then it was the Jordan Peterson Destroys collection, where he would render media people speechless with common sense and logic. And I just loved it. So my 420 regimen was eat a cookie, watch Jordan Peterson. And I saw him on Joe Rogan in a 30-minute cutout where he explained how his daughter, who was afraid she was going to die, figured out if she only ate beef, salt, and water, her chronic arthritis, she had 2 joints replaced by the age of 17. Think about that, on the same leg. Think about that. And she was the youngest person to ever, at that point in time, she was given antidepressants at the age of 10. Her depression was so severe. When she changed her eating, all of her symptoms vanished.
Wow.
And if it's anybody else but Jordan Peterson telling me this, I've changed the channel. Because just eating meat, oh my God, you all know, Mandy, that's nuts. That's just nuts.
That's crazy.
And my wife comes home from work that day, and I'm like, you got to sit and watch this. But Jordan Peterson, part of his spiel has been, don't lie, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because lying sends out a ripple that affects far more people than anyone ever really imagines. And if it's anybody but him, that's just too crazy. But because it was him, I investigated further, and I found other people with the same quality of integrity, people who had nothing to gain by sharing their experiences.
Wow.
Right.
July 16th, 2018 was my very first day eating only meat and drinking only water. And today is my 2172nd day.
Wow.
I've had exactly 0 cheat days in that time.
Wow.
10 days into the experience, I woke up without joint pain for the first time as an adult.
Wow.
And my sugar cravings were all gone. They've never come back.
Oh my gosh.
Allison, pick up your jaw off the floor.
I know.
24th day, I'm taking a walk in the morning, and it's like somebody flipped a switch, and all that rage and all that anger and all that shit that kept me from becoming the person I always wanted to be, it just disappeared.
Wow. So you don't wait.
When that disappeared, it was replaced by a waterfall of joy that has never, ever left me, not for one moment.
Wow. That
and
is
so for nothing,
beautiful.
For no other reason, being able to share that with you, I thank you for that opportunity, because people need to know you're not broken. You're not a genetic error. Many of us were taught to eat things we should never have put into our mouth the first time. And I'm talking specifically about people who suffer from chronic illness. I followed my doctor's directions. I took my meds as prescribed. It was one of the few things I could keep track of rationally.
Yeah.
It used to freak my wife out. I couldn't tell you, put a complete sentence together, but I could keep track of my meds. And my quality of life has just skyrocketed from that. And so for 5.5 years, I still do teach people how to succeed at this wonderful way of eating.
Wow.
And the reason why there's a spiritualism component to this, I started doing these coaching sessions online mostly. Once in a while, I get to sit with someone face to face. And this same thing would happen. I thought I was just locking in and concentrating appropriately. What I now know is my head was filling up with energy.
Wow.
And I was basically giving readings without being aware I was giving readings.
You were channeling in the moment, and
exactly.
Jeez.
And
I've said that how many times where I'm like, there's times I would be like saying something and intellectually I was like, wow, that was really smart. That came out really smart. Wow, I didn't know you had that in you. And then now I realize I was like, oh shoot, that wasn't me. I was genuinely
I facilitated 2 or 3 mental health meetings a week for this one platform.
Yeah.
Whose name I don't even mention today. But anyway, and I would get phone calls from people afterwards, because the same thing would happen. And I would say these profound things. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? I'm not that smart. It's serious.
Yeah.
And now we get phone calls from people who are in the meeting going, how did you figure that out?
And you're like, I don't know.
What are you talking about? What was there to figure out? So-and-so was trying to manipulate you, and you kept turning it back on them in a way that they couldn't deal with. And finally, they had to get honest. And that individual who had to get honest later eliminated all of her anxiety from her life, which was a beautiful thing to see for her.
Wow.
So that's that. Without carnivore, we're not talking.
Yeah.
We're having this conversation. But I grew up Protestant after I met my second and final wife, God willing. She's not allowed to die before I do. We've only been together going on 28 years next weekend.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. We still enjoy one another, especially now.
Yeah,
Brett's not crazy anymore. You might imagine. And after I met my wife and whatnot, we came across a Catholic church. Long story short, I converted to Catholicism. I was very sincere about it. I think it probably kept me from offing myself at the worst of my worst depression days.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of times I never wanted to actively end my life, but that awful thought, well, if you're going to do it, how would you do it? I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think, but we're not going to do it. But if you're going to do it, how? That was what was going on in my mind. The carnivore lifestyle eliminated every bit of that from my being. I later had to, after I got well, I had to learn how to teach myself how to behave like a regular person again. Because if you're still talking crazy and you're still acting like you're crazy, well, eventually, again, you're truly going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And I could see that. So I spent a lot of time, long walks, which I now know are walking meditations. I never knowingly meditated in my life. Fast forward to a year ago, my wife and I are enjoying an incredible, she got on carnivore. She had osteoarthritis in her shoulder. She eliminated that in 1 month. She lost a bunch of weight. too. She feels amazing. We both are enjoying, at times we call it, it's almost like living a fairy tale.
Wow.
Because here we are, my wife's 65, I'm 63, and neither one of us take a single medication. Neither one of us have any physical problems whatsoever, except for my baldness. And that's only a problem when it rains. Because you can't put windshield wipers on your forehead.
No, you can't.
I can't imagine you can.
But anyway, a little less than a year ago, we came across this documentary on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. If you have seen it, then you know it's narrated by this guy named Graham Hancock. And it was fascinating to us. But then we started, this stuff is older than anything mentioned in the Bible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a question to add to my list of questions. Like, I always wondered, there was Adam and Eve, and they had Cain and Abel, and Cain got mad and jealous and killed Abel, and then God threw him out of the garden and he went and got a wife. Well, where the hell did she come from?
Oh,
Great question.
That's a great question. I like that. We're also
That's
like
one of the many and then I started going down these rabbit holes of human history that I never anticipated going down. And then I start hearing words like Anunnaki. And I start learning about all this. And maybe we weren't created the way we were told we were.
Wow.
And it wasn't that interesting. And then that's when we got the Gaia subscription, because I'm like, okay, that's all there is. There is information about this kind of stuff. We need to catch up.
Yeah,
We're way
need
behind.
to catch up.
right.
We're way behind. We got to catch up.
Absolutely.
And one day I just had to look at my wife and say, I can't go back to Mass anymore. It's a lie.
Yeah.
I'd be living a lie. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so we stopped going to Mass after the first 2 weeks. I realized we need a community.
Yeah.
We're in Jacksonville, Florida, 1.2 million people in here. I'm like, surely to goodness, there's some place for us to go to, and people of a similar mindset who are more experienced and knowledgeable to learn from.
Yeah.
And it just turned out, the first few times it came up in my search, I like dismissed it because I thought that's just too far out there. The name of the church is the Cosmic Church of Truth.
What?
So help me.
I'm like going to write it. I'm like, that's just crazy, because you're just like, I'm looking for something, and then you're like, how can that even be? Yeah.
Is it just a local church?
It's a local church.
Wow.
It's not affiliated with any other group. And they have a psychic fair once a month, twice a month, sometimes, to raise money to keep the lights on and the door open.
Wow.
It's a very small community. On a heavy day, there might be 25 people present for Sunday services.
Yeah.
But we walk in there the first time, my wife and I, and we're met at the door by these people hugging us, going, oh, look at this new energy.
I love that.
And they were so sweet. And they were, my wife, who hates going to new places and who hates meeting new people, she felt at home as soon as she stepped inside. And we're like, this is where we're supposed to be.
Aww.
And then we find out they have every Friday night a mediumship circle class.
Oh, wow.
So that jumped out at me and her almost as soon as we found out. So we started attending. Now, keep in mind, at this point, I don't know squat about meditation. I only know that looks like something I should investigate further.
Right.
Yeah.
First 6, and I went in with the right at it, knowing nothing is going to happen for me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to have to learn. I've got to be patient. Thank God for carnivore. I had that patience.
Yes.
Without carnivore, I'd have been standing up in the middle of the circle going, why the hell is everybody else seeing something and not me? That's not fair.
It's so true.
Anyway, and I realized I was going to have to learn how to meditate, that I was never going to progress if I didn't. So a year ago last week was when I willfully, knowingly started trying to meditate. Because, at the beginning, no one's really very good at it.
Right. It's hard.
And it is hard.
It took me about 6 weeks before I could get into a good theta and gamma state and actually get deep enough to where, spirit guides, you all have names. Shit. Now I know your names. And I have the guardian angel that I thought was a spirit guide. It's really my guardian angel. Oh, and her name's Mika. How cool is that?
Wow.
And the next class we go to, it was August 4th, 2023. And I thought, I'm going to approach this class like it's a meditation.
Smart.
And that was one of the smartest things I've ever done in my life, because that's the night that Orna connected with me.
Oh.
The class has started. I'm deep into meditation, and in my mind's eye, I see this beautiful golden ball of energy on this side of my viewing. And I'm like, that's me. I know that's me. How cool is that? I'm finally seeing something that I didn't imagine or make up. And then a few seconds later, there's this blue ball of energy right beside my golden ball of energy. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Who's that?
That's not me. And the teacher running the class always had this thing. If you see something, you hear something, somebody says something, and it doesn't make sense to you, it's concerning in any way, bring it to the group. So I brought it to the group. And all the facilitator said was, sounds to me like somebody might be doing some channeling soon. And I'm like, huh? I knew about channeling from watching Gaia, because I found all the channelers, Bashar, Sheila Gillette. I found all those people just amazing and all but me? An old guitar player who took psych meds for 20, almost 25 years? Nobody's going to get real. Not 10 minutes later, an extremely talented young man came to me and said, Brett, there's an extraterrestrial standing right to your left. They have sapphire colored eyes. Wow. And they want you to know that if you're willing, you can make a connection with them.
Wow.
And my intuition was going to rip my guts out to jump on the floor and look at me and say, do it.
Right? So loud.
So loud.
And I said yes. And that's when a 10,000-year-old, it's so weird to even still say this out loud, a 10,000-year-old light energy being of Arcturian descent named Orna, O-R-N-A, came to live and connect with me telepathically. And she sees everything I see. She feels everything I feel. Wow. The only time that she's not present is when I'm engaged in privacy. And she's not a peeper.
Beat it, Orna. Beat it.
Beat it. Get out of here. Don't be rude, Orna.
That's too funny. All my wife has ever said about that, she better not be paying attention. Anyway. And that's when, my first thought was, how do I convince my wife I haven't gone crazy again?
Oh my gosh.
That's valid. That's valid.
Totally have that.
This was like I said, this was August 4th on a Friday evening when this connection was made. That Mondays, I work at the same print shop my wife does for one day a week. I do the nastiest job they have. And that's how we make the car payment, was me doing that nasty, awful job. Well, we're going to work, and Orna tells me before we leave the house, I want to speak to your wife. I need to. It must happen. And that's when I channel her the very first time. My wife's driving. And suddenly I have this image of my wife in the left side of my mind's eye, and I'm looking at her. But then there's an image down here in the bottom right-hand corner of my mind's eye, and that's I'm only seeing the dashboard above our glove box.
Oh,
and it's
wow.
I can hear talking, but it sounds like it's very far away. And I could barely hear Orna assure my wife, whose name is Danielle, I'm not going to let him make the same mistake more than once. He's not going to be asked to do anything that's going to negatively impact your marriage. And I want you to know that your marriage is as important to me as it is to you.
Wow.
It was like 3 minutes long.
And she was driving while she was receiving this message?
Yeah, my wife was driving. And so at the end of it, I'm like, well, what do you think? She said, that was strange. I'm like, no kidding. Should have seen what I saw. And that's how we got connected. That's how my wife came on board, realizing this is very real, because Orna doesn't sound anything at all like me. Matter of fact, you can tell English is not her first language at times. And everything has been so much vastly improved with her presence. And
wow.
I went from performing, dying to perform every weekend, to agreeing with her that her work is much more important. She's on a mission from Source to assist in the ascendancy of the planet to the fifth dimension.
Wow.
And she's here to spread the message that love is the universal tool, and love will be what raises the planet to the fifth dimension before anything else will.
Beautiful.
It really is a beautiful message. And that's my focus for life now. I still do readings at church. Anybody that wants a reading, I'm happy to give them one. Because it's like anything else, the more you do, the better you get at it.
Yep.
And I've been blessed to tell you how I got into readings and how I learned. I got this deck of cards just out of curiosity. Angel Answers deck. And they were having a day of healing. And on a day of healing at our church, there will always be 2 or 3 Reiki healers there, and then there'll be 1 or 2 people to give readings in case somebody wants one.
Yeah.
Well, on this particular day of healing, my wife was working the front desk, and I just brought this along with the manual. Thought, well, I'll look through these and see if I can figure out how to make sense of it. And the people who were scheduled to do the readings didn't show. And so the board of directors for the church is the one in charge that day. And he sees me with those cards. You know how to use those? I said, yeah, I think so. He said, well, you're up. We got 2 people who want a reading. No pressure.
Right? Throw you right in.
And I knew 30 seconds into the first one, I've done this before. Because my head filled up with energy. Before I even got the cards out of the box, my head was filling up with energy.
Wow.
But both readings went very well. Both clients or sitters were very, very happy. The second sitter was more difficult than the first one because this was a severely mentally ill individual on too much medication who could barely talk. But even they were happy because I could resonate with where they were at, because I had been on so much meds at times it was all I could do to put a sentence together.
Yeah.
So I had great empathy for that individual. Anyway, that's how. And then 2 weeks later, somebody called off for the November regular psychic fair, and they said, you want to do it? And since then, there's been no looking. I even had to perform that night, that I had to, one of those till 2 a.m. gigs.
Oh,
After doing, I did like 7 readings that first day.
Wow.
And I'm just like, this is going to end up replacing music, is what's most important to me. I could feel it right then. And then after the November psychic fair, when I did like 8 out of 10 possible readings, and I was like, there's nothing better than this.
Living your life's purpose. Yeah.
Yes. And it's so satisfying. And now my goal is to get to a place to where I'm doing 1 or 2 readings a day every day.
Wow.
Being in that energy. You know what I find it, when you talk about like going to church, and then when you realize you didn't resonate with it, but you felt the loss of the community part of it. That to me, I'm like, ooh, I think that's the biggest part of religion, or people being drawn to religion, is the community part, not necessarily what is being spoken about, but it's like people seek community. And it just kind of was like a light bulb for me, in that sense of, you seeked community, but you needed it to resonate with you, which is completely understandable. And that was something I experienced, because I grew up going to church, and I think I said like last year, maybe it was Christmas, I forget, but my parents really like it when we attend at least one service or whatever. And so I remember kind of going, and I was like, I'm doing this for them, and I don't resonate with what they're saying. And, I have this whole like, but I remember sitting there looking around, and I could feel the energy, and it was the community. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is what it is. It's not necessarily the words being spoken. It's the community. These people have come together, and they feel safe. And I could feel that kind of warmth and that love with that. And I'm like, that's the core of it, the beauty of it. And so I love that you were able to find a community of like-minded, and to be able to, meet your, or let you be able to like resonate and connect on that level, and not have to jeopardize your own kind of like belief system in that. I'm like, I love that. I'm going to be like Googling cosmic.
How to start a church?
Yeah. I'm like, well, this is just like, what an amazing church. Like, that's crazy.
I'll send you the link to the Facebook page.
Yeah.
You can watch anybody. They have a big calendar when you walk into the church, and on that calendar, you'll see a gazillion different names. And what that is it's a combination of classes being offered, but on Sundays, if everybody who's a member gets the opportunity to speak to the congregation.
Wow.
And so naturally, I spoke in November of last year for the first time. And of course, it was my health journey.
Right.
And I wasn't going to hit him with Orna right off the bat, because I was still trying to figure out just exactly what Orna meant at that point in time. But I've gotten to speak to the church a couple of times, once on an emergency basis, and it was the one time I've ever spoken that Spirit gave me what to say. I couldn't come up with a topic. I'd done 2 other talks that I knew I wanted to give. I understood it was all from my life experience. I talked about how I became a normal person again, and what I had to, the work I had to do internally on myself to make that possible. And I had no clue what I was saying
right
until I saw the video. So you can, whenever you go to their Facebook page, you can scroll back and see every talk anybody's done for the last 2 or 3 years. And you can even see my wife she gave a great talk, her first time ever speaking in public. And she gave a great talk on her experience in learning about crystals. She's choosing to use crystals for her healing.
Beautiful.
Love crystals.
And we're both walking the journey, but they're very different journeys. Her thing is very different than what I'm doing. But it's been a joy walking that road side by side, instead of one of us being way ahead of the other, and the other one the other one eating the other one's dust, and that's never fun for anybody.
No. It's beautiful that you guys were able to transform together, right? Because sometimes that's the hardest part, is to be able to transform and grow together.
And just a couple of Saturdays ago, she taught her first class at the church, and of course it was on using crystals, setting up grids and that kind of stuff, and explaining why crystals are such an important and powerful force in our universe. And what we can really do with them.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I'm armed. I'm always armed. I never
always holding.
Yes, always holding, or one or two in my pocket. but that that's pretty much where we're at. And Orna has taught me so many important things, like controlling my thoughts. She explained in a way that I can understand about how, when we think of thought, it's a form of energy. It goes out into the universe and attracts like energy and comes back to us. Well, for 40, 50 years of my life, all I did was spew out and think negativity. And it took me the longest time to realize I had to stop that. And because of Orna, I was able to now, once in a while, a negative thought will leak out of my head, and I'll be like, all right, source, please take that. Only you can take that and make something good out of it. I certainly can't.
I like that.
But there's been that, and then she's explained to me that for the longest while I was seeking gurus, these more experienced people. I'm like, those are the people I need to talk to and absorb sponge knowledge from, et cetera, when the truth is, really, in reality, we all contain all the answers within ourselves.
You just have to tap into it.
And Orna helped me understand that.
Wow.
And now I live that every day.
Love that.
I love, and trusting it, one question that popped up in my head was, so, when you were kind of like, Orna came in and one of your thoughts was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to convince my wife that I'm not going crazy again, or this isn't. And I think that's something that a lot of us, when we start to connect to our intuition, when we start to connect to beings and all of this, we question our sanity, or we worry, like, my goodness, am I like losing it? Or like when we speak these things out loud, sometimes to somebody that's not, like if I say certain things to Mandy and then I say those same things to, a friend that's not in this, it's like the vibration has changed, and I'm like, oh my God, I sound crazy. Like, maybe I'm crazy. And you sit there and you do question your sanity sometimes. And I think everybody that we've ever come in contact, our students and all of that, has kind of sat there and been like, am I going crazy? So, where do you find that balance in the fact that, that's something you have lived with or have had to, move through and be like, okay, where's the line, and did you ever have moments where you're like, oh my, am I going crazy? Like, is this, or were you always like, no, the frequency's different?
Fortunately, I was blessed because of my carnivore experience. I was much more responsive than reactive. I was no longer assuming the worst possible outcome for anything, like I had for decades. Which kept me from having those kind of doubtful moments.
So you're clear, your mind was very clear.
It was much clearer than I was expecting in so many ways. And the the second psychic fair I did, I had a couple of difficult readings, and those were the first time and only time I ever questioned myself.
Okay.
And that was mostly from a lack of experience.
Okay. Yeah.
And I haven't had that feeling that, oh, was I right there? Did I make a mistake? I've never doubted, never had to second guess myself a single time since.
Wow.
Because Orna convinced me. You're on target.
I love that.
The fact that you were off target for most of your life prior to that is not an indication. It has nothing to do with now.
No.
Right.
You're on target now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. When you step on your path, like that's the thing, you know, where we can live our lives. And then all of a sudden, when we step on path, when we step on where we're needing to be, and your spirit guide's like, finally, we're here. Now let's go. And it doesn't matter when we do that, you know, like it's kind of like sitting there and you're kind of like, oh, well, it's too late for me to. No, it's exactly when you're supposed to step on this path, you know, and that's part of our lessons, right? Yeah.
Are we can you channel Orna for us?
I certainly can.
Awesome.
You can each ask her a couple of questions.
Yeah.
And just give me a few moments here. I don't have to go through a big long ritual, but it'll take me a moment to get out of her way.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Orna. How may I serve thee this evening?
Thank you, Orna, so much for being with us. We're so very grateful for your presence today. We were wondering if you might have a message for our audience.
My message for your audience this evening is to always trust in love. In your society, Western societies, there is a great deal of conflict, finger pointing, unnecessary bickering, some cases violence that serves no positive purpose of any kind. And the way that humans can treat this sickness, if you will, is by loving, by applying love to every situation. What would love say? What would love do in this situation, in this environment? Live by love. And your communities, your homes, your families, everyone will be better served by using love to solve your crises, your lack of understanding about yourself. Let love lead the way to a better quality of life and ultimately the ascendance of Mother Gaia herself.
Thank
If you
you.
have other questions, you're welcome.
Yes, for those that struggle with staying in the frequency of love or being able to see things from that perspective, what advice do you have for allowing them to maybe move into that frequency to be able to see and experience their lives from a place of love instead of a place of fear?
Such a well-formed question. Thank you. My first thought is fear is a liar. Fear serves no purpose in any being's existence. No useful purpose. It's always negative. It's always destructive. It always brings people, humans' vibration, other beings' vibrations downward. I would encourage you first to understand it is proper and expected that you learn to love yourself first. For how can you express love for another or for the planet itself if you don't love yourself. And too many in Western society specifically seem to have an issue with loving themselves. They are prone to say, isn't that an act of selfishness? When in truth, it's an act of kindness towards yourself. And when we're kind to ourselves, when we treat ourselves properly, the universe rewards us in positive ways. No matter what dimension you might be at presently, you have the capability of learning to love yourself. And once you're able to love yourself honestly and truthfully, learning to love others becomes much easier and much more practical. I hope this answer suffices.
Yes, thank you.
You have other questions?
Allison, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm curious of, as humanity is moving through this shift here on Earth, I'm curious to kind of know, or an update of where we are at as a whole in that shift. If it's, on track of shifting to the fifth dimension, and yeah, like the time frame for that.
I cannot speak to a specific time frame, for there's a risk of people thinking one thing may occur and then being terribly disappointed should it not occur then.
Mm-hmm.
I will share that sometime within the next 15 years, the planet Earth should be in the fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at 15 to 20 years maximum from this point forward. In your lifetimes, you will see the ascension of the planet. It's already slowly underway. More beings are being brought in to other channelers to help share this message of love, to assist in having communities meditate on the issue of love with the purpose of helping the planet ascend. We and light workers in general do not need to gather in the many thousands to have a significant impact. Communities of 5 or 6 people have more impact than you could possibly imagine. Studies have been done on Earth showing how just through the act of meditation, heavy crime areas, especially with violent crime, have been reduced to almost nothing. 80 to 85% reduction in violent crimes just because 1,700 humans decided to meditate from where they lived, that a certain area might experience a drop in crime. And that's exactly what has occurred. Imagine if several million groups of 5 or 6 people began meditating on loving Mother Gaia enough to help her ascend to the fifth dimension. Just imagine the power that could be unleashed. The dense energies, the manipulators, those who covet power above all else, who've lied to humans for centuries, who've manipulated and coerced and misinformed willfully, they will be utterly defeated by love. And Mother Earth will ascend to the fifth dimension. And then in that place, those dark energies, those controlling life forms will have no power. They will no longer be the the effective force they are at present. I hope this answer was sufficient. If you have another question, please ask.
Thank you. You know, Mandy and I have felt, this calling. We have felt this need to help serve, and to help others connect to this part of themselves. Is there any advice that you could give us that we could do or do differently or add, in this kind of, in our purpose in helping humanity ascend?
I have observed a great deal of your content through Brett. I applaud you both for the energy that you pay into your community that you've both created, that you've started, to the classwork that you're doing. My recommendation is to continue as you are. More and more people will come to you because you're offering positive assistance for their daily lives. You're offering something that they cannot find on any shelf of any store. What you're offering is priceless information. And because of the work that you're doing and the people that you're going to influence, who are also going to be motivated to go out and share with others what you've shared with them, the message will spread that you want spread, and the consequences will all be extraordinarily positive and quite beautiful for you and those working through you and with you to observe. Keep doing the great work that you're about. Keep trusting in yourselves. You're both very highly evolved. In addition to your great sense of humor, you have a great sense of commitment. Continue to honor that, and you will both thrive in ways you never imagined was possible.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Do you have any other questions? If you do, wonderful.
I just have
Go
one
ahead.
more. Yes, thank you. I'm curious if you have any guidance or advice for us as we are, in a sense, feel like we straddle two different frequencies, two different worlds, because we work in corporate to pay the bills and do all the 3D things that we need to do, where we also feel connected to the fifth dimension and being of service and helping raise the consciousness in that sense, but it can be really polarizing at times to be pulled between the two different experiences. Do you have any guidance or advice for us on how we can better manage those times when it's difficult?
My first piece of advice is choose to not make it difficult. Set your boundaries. Set the line that your belief system will not allow you to cross, and stay on the right side of that line. Let the corporate types who don't believe in what you believe, and what Brett believes, and what I believe, they're going to do their thing, no matter what you say or do. So be the happy example that they cannot ignore when you're in their presence. Maintain your positive outlook at all times. Let your energy, your light within shine so that those around you are positively affected by your mere presence. After you've said a streak of I ams, add at the end of that, I am vibrating higher than I've ever vibrated before. And you will be vibrating higher than you've ever vibrated before.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's been a joy speaking with you both. I thank you for this opportunity to share this information. And I look forward to future conversations when time and life allow. Thank you. Farewell for now. And I'll let Brett come back forward. Well, Mandy's not crying. That's a good sign. And Allison's laughing. That's an even better sign. I don't hear what she says. I don't know what she's saying.
Really? You don't know any of it?
Most of it, I might get a word here or there. The more often we do this, the less I seem to gather, which I think is just a sign of the connection strengthening.
Yeah.
But I once in a while, for instance, we have this dear friend, Nina Matter. She's the one, she helped me and Orna channel 2 books now.
Oh,
one is in the final stages of editing, and we hope to have books to share and advertise for here before the end of August.
Wow.
Nice.
And I had a point to make with that, and it just went that way. And I think it just,
down the corner.
I think it jumped into the energy out there for a bath. What were we talking about? Help me out here. The old man's had a long day. He's been up since 4:30 this morning.
We were just asking because you were saying that you don't ever really get to hear what she says.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just don't. Now, once in a while, Nina Matters, the lady who helps, and you all would love her to death. She eats, sleeps, and breathes spiritualism. When she's not, and she's a QHHT practitioner, and she's extraordinary. She could be an amazing medium if she wanted to, but she's called, her thing is the QHHT sessions. Yeah. And the amount of energy this lady is able to move through one of those is just phenomenal. She gave me one 3 months ago. And I thought Orna had actually materialized in the bed beside. There was so much energy coming through.
Wow.
And it was an online experience like what we're having.
Yeah.
And Nina will tell you that she experiences Orna's energy very much like you all have this evening. See, Orna keeps most of her energy away from harming me. Because if I was exposed to all of her energy, I wouldn't survive.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yes. It's intense. Yeah.
Anyway, I just don't. Once in a while, my physiology will respond emotionally to something that either Orna or Nina or both of them have said.
Right.
And I've come out of the trance with my face so wet, I thought somebody threw a glass of water at me or something. And it's from where I got, my body got emotional.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Nina always types out a transcript of these sessions. And then I would read and find out that way what Orna said, what was going on, why was I crying, why did I come out of trance? And Nina and I both were laughing because Orna's got an incredible sense of humor.
Okay.
Which is wonderful because I'm sarcastic as hell on my greatest day.
I wondered if she had a good sense of humor, only because this whole time we've been podcasting, I have this plant over here and it keeps moving. And there's like, I have like my window, but it's open like a crack and it's on the other side of the room here. And this one is like behind a little desk. So there's no way the wind could get to it. And it's just this one little dead leaf that just keeps moving. And I'm like, there is energy in here. And I wondered if it was Orna.
Might have been.
Yeah.
One thing I know Orna does whenever it looks like I'm going to get to interact with somebody new, she always does what I call a flyby and learns everything she needs to learn about them to determine whether or not they're a threat.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Well, she's like a little gatekeeper
Flyby.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flyby gatekeeper. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. And I never have to worry about someone doing harm to me because of her. And I'm so well protected at times that I'm like, what did I do to warrant this?
Aw.
And her response is always, it's not what you're doing, it's what you're going to do is the reason why.
Love that.
And she's been watching me. I had first had contact with her when I was 7 years old. I didn't know it at the time it was her, but I'm in my backyard back in West Virginia, and there's this circle of sparkling lights, and I could hear this tinkling noise in my head. I didn't know at the time. At the time, I just thought, well, this feels weird. But my head filled up with energy.
Right.
I wasn't afraid. I didn't fully understand. I was only 7 years old. What the hell did I know at 7? But I knew I instinctively knew I could not tell my parents about it. My dad would have gotten very upset for me carrying tall tales, creating tall tales.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how that would have been interpreted. And Orna would stop in to check on me every so many years. And then during the crazy years, if she stopped in, I was unaware of it. But I was unaware of a lot of things then.
Right.
You were detached, right? Like there's a detachment that kind of happens with medication. So that detachment would have been present. Yeah.
Imagine if you can 108 me acting 180 degrees the other direction from where I am right now. And that still won't get you in to the darker place that I really was.
Yeah.
Right.
That's as close as I can get you there. And you don't want to be any closer because it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I really wouldn't. And that's why I continue to coach people how to succeed at the carnivore lifestyle. And when I do readings, I call it intuitive therapy, because I believe that if you're not feeling better at the end of our discussion, I didn't do my job well.
Yeah. I like that. That's kind of like how we feel too. It's more like soul guidance is like how we describe it.
And I love that you all do that together and how you all make that work energetically and whatnot. I find very fascinating. It'd be like me trying to channel or have two beings channel through me at this. I don't know how you would make it work. That's what it makes me think of when I think of you all doing that together.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it that way, that it would like have that perspective of like how, we kind of like come together and are able to do.
We usually get different layers of the same message. So it's really interesting.
Oh, I was fascinated watching you all describe that on your podcast was very enlightening and very, very interesting. And my respect for you all shot up many points after watching that, because
thank you.
You all put some serious time and effort into that. That's not just something you all came across by accident.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I love that. Thank you for that perspective. I think like sometimes you can, things can kind of happen and then you just are like, oh yeah, that's great. That worked. And sometimes we forget, like, actually, no, like, that's pretty cool that, like we can get caught up in that and you can forget that it's like, no, actually take a step back. And so thank you, Brett, for that perspective on that. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
You're very welcome. And you both are very impressive ladies. Together, as individuals, you're a powerhouse, but when you come together, you're a very, very wonderful wall of joy and happiness and energy, and you share useful knowledge. A lot of folks in similar situations, they share a lot of talk without any substance behind it. And you all don't waste words, and you're funny as shit, I swear to you. The first episode I ever listened to, I'm at work doing this drudgy, nasty stuff, and I'm listening to your podcast, and I hear Allison's respond to Mandy's question. Have you got something in your eye? Yeah, I'm digging it out right now, right here on camera. And just hearing that, I started horse laughing because I had this vision of her with a toothpick or something, trying to get whatever that eyelash or whatever it was in her eye out of it. I just had
just right there. I could she was trying to cover it with her phone because she was looking at her camera.
I went back later. I went back later and watched the video. I laughed even harder then.
Oh my God.
You can't see what I'm doing. You don't know what I'm doing back here.
Everybody could. Oh, I'm like, I love that. I'm like,
so
and this whole night is another point I want to make. I don't know how it is for you all, but I find every conversation I have with other mediums is like the most wonderful conversation. And we talk for so long, it's like, this is never going to end, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I love it more than, I'd much rather talk to other mediums than I would anybody else on planet Earth right now. I don't know why that is, but every conversation I've had with other mediums has just been the most joyful thing.
I think it's because we can be so authentic.
Yeah.
Without fear.
Without fear.
It's safe to be truly ourselves. Yeah.
And I would encourage those who still have fear issues. I got to get this. I thought of this without Orna. I swear I did.
Without Orna.
Once I had my very first QHHT session where I experienced a past life, that validated reincarnation for me. If I don't have to be afraid to die, in truth, what is there for me to be afraid of?
Yeah, it's so true.
A deep thought.
And I'm not afraid of anything. And I've even gone so far as to eliminate all the worry, concerns, take all those words out of my vocabulary because there's no place for them anymore.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I would encourage folks to seriously meditate on that whole issue, because you eliminate the fear of death from your life. Then once that happens, the only one holding us back is ourselves.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
And yeah, and I've definitely felt that as somebody who, grew up with anxiety and all of that. The moment all of a sudden light bulb went off where I just didn't fear death. And I'm like, what a weird place to be. And I think for a lot of people, when I say that, because I've said that to my mom, I've said that to different people, and it's a bit of like what? It's kind of like, well, if you don't fear it, like you can't invite it in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not saying I want to do it. And I'm like, but I don't fear it. And it's such a concept that people have a hard time getting wrapped around that. But it's like such a beautiful place to be because it's freeing. It's so freeing. The moment it's just like, when my time, it's my time. It's my time. Like I'm fine with that. I'm at peace with that. It is what it is. And I know that I'd be going somewhere beautiful and excited to see what the next journey is. So it's such a nice release to be able to release all of that.
I'm happy for you. Congratulations on experiencing that. I know what that feels like. It is liberating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know how you both feel today, but I feel like given the right information and education, there's really nothing I can't accomplish. And the cool thing about mediumship, as long as you're cognitively still functional, there's no age limit on it.
Yes.
So true.
So true.
I don't have to worry about my skills depreciating due to age.
They'll just get stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be closer to the veil.
Yeah. To the veil.
And when you go, Brett, we will do an episode for you, and it'll be called After the Veil.
Yeah. Yeah. Beyond the Veil with Brett Llyod.
Oh, that's a good one.
We'll channel you, Brett.
Yeah.
There you go. I give you permission to do that, and I would come through most happily.
Okay.
And we would laugh our asses off.
I know. I think we would.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, thank you so much for being here, Brett. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad that I was able to do this with you all. I appreciate your kindness so very much. And I hope that in the future we can have another great conversation, whether it's recorded or not, because we resonate.
Yes, we do. We will definitely have you back when your book is ready to come out. Okay. So we can talk about that. But before we let you go, can you share with our audience where people can find you if they want to travel along with you on your journey, your carnivore journey? Because you share a lot of that on your social media, don't you?
I do. You can the URL for our website. I always end up panicking on this. And I'm not going to yell in the other room for my wife to refresh my memory. I know it's .space. Spiritlife.space is my wife and I's webpage. She advertises her crystal healing there, and people can book a reading with me there as well if they so choose. There's a calendar there. You can find me on Instagram at thankful.carnivore.medium. I just recently added the .medium because that's what I am.
Yeah,
there's no point. And people need to understand. Otherwise, people will be going, what happened to this carnivore guy? He's always talking. He's putting out these crazy pictures, talking about the universe and shit. The only reason I still pay attention to him is because he's always got the best looking bacon I've ever seen. But yeah, thankful.carnivore.medium. I'm happy to answer questions with regard to carnivore. If you want to talk metaphysical stuff, I'll talk to you all day long. Nicole from the Spiritual Sisters said, I'm going to talk your ear off one day. And I said, I bet we'll have a contest to see who talks whose ear off first.
We can see that.
And one day we'll have that conversation, and I can't wait because it's going to be a joyful one.
Yes.
And I know we're going to have more joyful conversations as well.
Absolutely. It's
been an honor. Thank you very, very much. And I wish you both nothing but light and love to immerse yourselves and your families in 24/7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.